Hello, welcome back to History of Wine and the Vine. I'm Emily Kate. Today I wanted to discuss kind of a super fun topic, which is happy accidents. So a lot of things that were discovered throughout history pertaining to wine and other things were actually the result of complete accidents or acts of nature. So a lot of the background of why things are done the way they're done is very utilitarian and doesn't really have much to do with being artistic or anything like that. It's a lot of just simply logistics, and I'm going to tell you about two stories that really affected the wine industry and how we know it today that were accidental, that weren't really planned. So the first is the use of barrel aging. So barrels were originally simply used because if a winery was kind of on the top, near a vineyard and was kind of on the top of a hill, as we discussed in the history of the wine trade video, if you haven't seen it, go check it out. A lot of these wines were actually transported via rivers or oceans, so they actually had to make their way down to the port. Now, amphora and kind of other things, you can't roll bottles down, you can't roll amphora really down because they're kind of like an oblong shape. So they kind of created these supple wooden barrels that were able to be pushed down hills really easily. And these barrels would go from the top of the hill near the winery and just be pushed right down, and then they would be really easy to get to the port and to be transported from one place to another. And this actually kind of created the idea of barrel aging because they noticed that the wine that was in these barrels tasted a lot better once it made the journey to whatever place that it was being shipped to than it did in the winery. So they were trying to figure out what it was. They thought maybe it's the motion of the ocean, or they didn't know what it was. And then finally they figured out it was actually the flavor of the oak, of the wood that was being imparted into the wine that was kind of making it so great. And then began the whole idea and the whole process of wanting to create barrel aged wine and kind of have there be an artistic aspect to it. And now we have American oak and French oak, and we have new oak and old oak and all kinds of things that people use, oak staves, to kind of specifically alter how the wine tastes. But it was a happy accident. The other happy accident that I love is the kind of figuring out of champagne. So in Champagne, France, people were kind of going about their normal vintage routine and creating their wine and trying to ferment it. And what happened was it was like a super freezing cold winter, and fermentation just halted in Champagne, France. And so fermentation just halted until it became warm out again, when it kind of jump-started and started all over again. So this was kind of like second fermentation, double fermentation. And originally, now it's something that is so prized, but originally they were like, oh God, no, you can't have two fermentations. And then once this happened, there was like fizziness in the beverage, and they just thought that this was like a fault, that this was terrible. And then Dom Perignon was kind of charged with figuring out how to make sure that this didn't happen, that you couldn't have fizziness in the bottle, these bubbles, nobody wanted them, it was a mistake, it was a fault. And so he was kind of charged with this idea of having to get the bubbles out and make sure they never appeared again. Then, in the 17th century, the tastes at Versailles changed, and they thought, you know what? We kind of like this idea. It's kind of celebratory with this kind of idea of just having bubbles in your drink was very novelty now. And so then he had to go back and figure out how to make more bubbles go into the wine. And now we have kind of the French method of making champagne, where you have the double fermentation and you kind of let the carbon dioxide absorb into the wine, so that then you can have that big nice pop of champagne and the bubbles in your glass. So I think that this is a really fun topic, these kind of happy accidents. I hope that you enjoyed it too, and if you know of any other wine happy accidents, let me know down in the comment section. I would love to hear, and I will see you next week. Cheers!